Hello everybody, welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself George bringing you a brand new review, and today I'm going to be talking about Anemone, which is the new film, The Return of Daniel Day-Lewis, and I may have just butchered that film's pronunciation. A pronunciation of a film I've struggled with a lot in the last few days. I spent months thinking this was called Anemone, but it is an anemone, I think. I don't know if I've added an extra N. I do not know. I'll be talking about that. I'll be talking about a lot of things with this film. It premiered at London Film Festival early this week, following its world premiere at New York Film Festival. I have been lucky in seeing it early. It does release here in the UK on the 9th of November. And yeah, the return of Daniel Day-Lewis. It's the selling point, the talking point. It's what everyone's here to see. So everyone would love to see that's a fan of the industry. And as I kickstart another London Film Festival review, I will say we are doing daily LFF reviews. I'll announce the next one at the end of this video, but the official BFI description is: marking the highly anticipated return to the screen of Daniel Day-Lewis, Anemone is a vivid exploration of family ties. Whew. You could say that again. My thoughts on this are going to be very interesting. It's a film that's had a very mixed response from a lot of people. Almost everybody I know at the festival did not care for this film, if I'm allowed to say so myself. I'm not going to do the reviews for them. The heat of discussion after, I say heat, it was just very interesting to get different opinions and takes on this. I'm going to try and summarise mine the best way I can in a review, but it's going to be a very difficult review to talk about, if I'm honest. I do not want to give anything away from the story, but one of the biggest criticisms I have of this film is actually the story itself. So, first and foremost, I'll talk about the direction by Ronan Day-Lewis in his directorial debut. And if you haven't clocked it, yes, he is the son of Daniel Day-Lewis. They co-wrote the film together. If you can all remember, last year some set photos came out, and then suddenly it was announced that, yes, Daniel Day-Lewis had returned to acting. He's gone on the record multiple times in the last month to say, quote, he never said he was retiring. That came from somebody else. And I do believe that somebody else is his agent. But I will say this straight away. Daniel Day-Lewis, of course, a welcome return to the film industry. One of, if not the greatest actors of all time, who's given us some of the greatest performances of all time. I rewatched There Will Be Blood recently, so I'm going to be absolutely blitzing about this. He's given one of my favourite performances ever as well in Gangs of New York, which I have to add. But with his son being a first-time director, I don't want to be too harsh on his son, if I'm honest, but I don't think this is very well directed. And it's his first film, and I can let that go, and I can let that slide. I'm not a dick. It felt like a definition of nepotism, right? And it's... I can't remember who said this at the screening, but the sentence that can't leave my mind is... It's like a student film starring Daniel Day-Lewis. It's insane that we're saying that, and I'm saying that on a review, but I can't really wrap my head past that point. The story itself, it's quite hidden. It's not noticeable within the trailer. And if I'm frank, it's not that noticeable within the film itself. If I try and delve into it a little bit more without giving much away, Daniel Day-Lewis is a recluse living in the woods, a former soldier, and his brother has come out to get him to come out to help with a family issue back home involving a son. That's as much as I'm willing to say in this to keep it story free for yourselves, but unfortunately the story did nothing for me. It's just over 2 hours long, and there's absolutely not enough story to tell in that time. We spend a lot of times just sat around with certain characters doing nothing. Repeated scenes that didn't need to be repeated, and it really felt like this film was should really be 80 to 90 minutes. There was a loss of time. There was no urgency in the direction. There was no urgency in the storytelling. And it just sort of felt like we've built this film around 3 monologues that Daniel Day-Lewis is going to give to us in the best possible level. Now, how can we get to those points? And the problem I have with that is then when we get to those wonderful monologues, the film hasn't earned it because we've lost out a lot of story that would have actually built up to those moments. And it's really harsh. I'm normally very positive on reviews, but this is probably one of my least favourite films from the festival. And I'm so conflicted because if I talk about the performances, Ray, the lead character played by Daniel Day-Lewis, is absolutely remarkable in this one because, as you can tell, it's Daniel Day-Lewis. It is going to be remarkable, but there's something about this film that it's a shame this is the film he's come out of retirement for. I'm going to use the word retirement because everyone else has for 8 years. And I really hope this isn't his final film. Now, all that in mind, people on this channel know that I wasn't the biggest fan of Phantom Threads, but I know it's got its fans. I knew the performances were great in that. It just wasn't my type of film, which is absolutely fine. But to go out on a high such as that, I absolutely understood that, and stand by that's great. The conflict of coming back to do a film your son would like to direct is interesting. I don't hold it against him for wanting to do a film with his son. It's probably quite enticing as a father and as an actor. To co-write a film with your son too, I understand that. It's just the fact this is the film it ends up being. Do they not want to go to a professional writer to get their involvement on this one? Something I said to some people, and again it sounds harsh, it's kind of like Ronan Day-Lewis is trying to make a Paul Thomas Anderson film, except the fact he isn't Paul Thomas Anderson. That we have this remarkable cinematography that sits on the characters for ample amounts of time, but nothing's actually happening within those. Whereas PTA can do the opposite of that. He can put a stable camera down for 5 minutes, he can track the characters, but there is things happening on the screen, and you've got editing to go along with that. And I think this film is sort of half-baked at its absolute best. I spoke about the character of Ray being a sort of war veteran, ex-army. I can't give a lot of regards to that because it's the key part of the story, but it doesn't explore what happened before, and I came out of that wanting to have found out a little bit more. The events of the film don't function, and for me work, for where those characters are at the start of the story, which is a shame because I think there's a good film in here. I think there's a good concept of a film in here, but it's very pretentious. And pretentious isn't a word I use often on this channel, but it is that. It is, going back to the student film comments, that pretentious art house student film that 10 people are going to watch at a random regional film festival and no one's going to care to ever see again. But this time around it stars Daniel Day-Lewis, so of course everyone wants to see it. And in supporting roles we have Sean Bean, who... It's Sean Bean. He has a presence. He is a great actor. He doesn't get a lot to do other than just standing around Daniel Day-Lewis, and I mean, must be one of the best acting jobs in history. You get to stand on set and watch Daniel Day-Lewis perform. That's quite something, but there's no substance to his character. There's no depth to his character. It's very much we'd written there was another character that needed to be there to get him out. And then we've got Nessa, played by Samantha Morton, who I do like in this, who there is a story to tell there with her relationship with Ray and what happened before, the events that are happening with her son. I liked Samantha Morton, but again, we don't get a lot from her. We get repeated scenes of her in those same circumstances and more so. It's a really frustrating film to talk about. It's a frustrating film to review. The highlights are the performances, the highlights is the cinematography, but the negatives so far outweigh all of those. As I said, it's the lack of story, the lack of direction, and the pompous art house approach over actual storytelling mechanisms. It's a real shame that this is the film Daniel Day-Lewis has come back for. I really hope he does more films because this can't be the last one. I don't know if he's open for business. I don't know if it's going to be a director's got to approach him with a project for him to accept or decline. I've got no idea or intentions or what's going on there. But if he is back out, and this is, ironically, no pun intended, brought him out of the woods, then I'm all for that. Get him in a PTA film, get him back with Spielberg or Scorsese or something. He is a welcome addition, as he always will be. But unfortunately, Anemone is not that film. It releases here in the UK on the 9th of November. Do I recommend this film? I can only recommend it for you if you'd like to see the return of Daniel Day-Lewis. There is nothing going for this film away from that. It's a film that wouldn't exist without the return of Daniel Day-Lewis, which unfortunately echoes my recommendation that if you've got no interest in that, it's not one for you. I can't even tell you in good gracious mind that he gives a good performance, it's a good film. No, I can tell he gives a good performance, but the film isn't great, you're going to be bored. Then that's that for you, that's that for me, and it's a short review. It's how I'm rounding out this review. I don't like being negative on a review. I do look for the positives in films, but there really wasn't a lot in this one. Probably one of the most disappointing films of the year for me. Not that I had that big expectations. There was a bit of nervousness around it. Again, without jumping the gun at Nepos. We know there's Nepo babies in and around Hollywood, all forms of life. You get some remarkable ones. There's no problem with that. But unfortunately, this one, it's very obvious there what's gone on. And I wish Ronan Day-Lewis the absolute best in any of the future projects. Hope I hope they're much better than this, and maybe they will be. Maybe there won't be any more projects, who knows? But yeah, that's my thoughts. And you might be wondering, what is next from this boring moan? My review of Jay Kelly's coming up tomorrow. New Noah Baumbach film starring George Clooney, Adam Sandler, Greta Gerwig. Can't wait to talk about that one, unlike this one today. So that's it for me. Take care. I'll see you on the next one.